I am the chosen one, chosen by Clementine. I am guided as Christians are guided by Jesus Christ.
He was wearing black and yellow, a costume of sorts. It was custom designed for infamy. He had chosen a date carefully, Friday the 13th. He thought it had a good name on it. The plan was chilling in its precision. He wanted to be the most hated monster of the 21st century, a monster who would be remembered forever. He wrote it all down. He rehearsed what he was going to do, and then things got even more twisted. He made a video referring to himself as the chosen one, but he didn't claim to be chosen by God, instead by Clementine, a fictional child from a video game. But the question is, did he have it in him to pull this off? By the way, this is Dark Case, and you can call me Jack. I'll bring you true crime documentaries and other things that you may later regret knowing. Please do join the amazingly supportive Dark Case family by hitting subscribe now, and make sure that you have all notifications turned on. For the first time ever, the Dark Case merch shop is now open, so if you want to, you could head over to the store and pick up a t-shirt or a mug, or whatever else I've designed by the time you see this video. And now time for today's silly little question, which is actually more of a task, but I want you to drop 2 emojis down in the comments that sum up your high school experience. All Patreon and channel membership support goes a long way, and I can't thank you enough. But still, thank you. And now, on with the video. Nicholas Prosper was born in the early 2000s, and he grew up in Luton, England, on the Marsh Farm estate. And there he lived in a council flat with his mother, Juliana Falcon, younger brother Kyle, and youngest sister Giselle. Nicholas was described by former teachers as a geeky boy. He was into computers, he was quiet, and he wasn't particularly social. There were signs of isolation, and he dropped out of school before completing his A-levels. He spent most of his time alone on the internet or in the gym. By 2023, concerns were starting to build. His school and his parents had both referred him to a GP. There were suggestions that he might have undiagnosed autism, but Nicholas refused to engage with the professionals, and that was the end of that. There was no diagnosis, which meant there was no support. But behind closed doors, something was festering. Nicholas became obsessed with mass shootings. He'd read anything and everything he could find about them. He wasn't drawn to the victims though. Instead, he idolized the perpetrators. He made notes, spreadsheets, and plans. He studied Sandy Hook, Columbine, and Uvalde. He would research a number of casualties, the weapons used, the body counts. He would keep lists of the dead. And the further down the rabbit hole he went, the more his obsession grew, and now he wanted to surpass them. By late 2023, Nicholas's online life had fully taken over. Detectives would later describe it as a harmful internet world from which he would never return. He would watch really disturbing content. We're talking the stuff that most people don't even know exists. He visited websites showing people's final moments. However, he was eventually banned from one of them for making pro-PDF file comments. He also became obsessed with a fictional character. She was a little girl named Clementine, but we'll look deeper into this in a moment. Nicholas had no criminal record. He had no real-life contact with violent groups or gangs. But his mind was now fully occupied by these dark fantasies. He didn't just want his own time on this earth to come to an end. He wanted to go down in history. His plan was to end his entire family and then storm his old place of education, St. Joseph's. There he planned on snuffing out 30, before finally doing the same to himself. As I said, Nicholas didn't just isolate himself. Instead, he vanished into an online world of violence, fantasy, and deep delusion. In the months before the events in this video, his internet history was a roadmap to a dark obsession. He spent his time in the darkest corners he could find, researching horrifying things. He built dossiers on infamous killers, and he wasn't horrified by them. He wasn't studying them to try and stop people like that. Instead, he admired them. And with all of this also came a strange fixation that blurred fiction and reality. and that was Nicholas's obsession with Clementine, a child character from the Walking Dead video game series. In the game, she's smart, brave, and resourceful. She's a survivor in a brutal post-apocalyptic world. To Nicholas, she wasn't just a character, she became his spiritual guide. Honestly, this just makes me think he was more like Christian than anything else. In one video recorded shortly before the event, he said,
"I am the chosen one, chosen by Clementine. I am guided, as Christians are guided by Jesus Christ."
This wasn't just something on a level of cosplay, it was a delusion wrapped in ideology, an invented mythology where he cast himself as a martyr turned monster, sanctioned by a child saviour. His fantasy world gave him purpose in the real world. To him, it justified his plans. It detached him from empathy and morality, and these feelings were so powerful that they would drive him to the extremes of human behaviour.
On June 30th, my sister decided to make the only correct choices in episode 1 of season 1 of the Walking Dead games, and for that her face will be mutilated further than necessary.
Although delusional, Nicholas wasn't impulsive. His plan was more than a year in the making. He chose the date, Friday the 13th of September 2024, to maximise symbolism and shock value. In his own words, he wanted the massacre to have a good name on it. He ordered a black and yellow outfit, styled to be instantly recognisable. He even considered using a mask, but eventually decided against it. This is a video he made and posted to YouTube, and you can see he's wearing that yellow jacket and using a placeholder for a weapon. His online search history in the days before the event was horrifying. He looked up shotgun wounds, necrophilia, as well as the weather forecast, to ensure his deadly walk to his old place of education would go undisturbed. God forbid a killer should get wet. He made a booking at a shooting range in August, but he never attended. Instead, he turned to online firearm sales. Using a forged certificate, he tricked a private seller into handing over a shotgun and 100 cartridges. He claimed to be a volunteer working for a charity to earn his trust. He paid £650 for the weapon and an extra £30 for the seller's petrol. He even forged the watermark and signature on the fake certificate. But it would seem that he hadn't done enough to stop the seller from becoming suspicious, and the man did notify police of the sale. However, it would be too late. The weapon was now already in Giselle Prosper's hands. He was now armed. He had ammunition. He had a detailed plan. And in his head, all that stood in his way were the people he lived with. It began before sunrise. The first phase of Nicholas's plan was to put an end to his mother and his siblings in their sleep. But something went wrong. Mother Juliana woke up. As if things couldn't get any more disturbing, Nicholas would later admit that he did intend to violate her, but he claimed that his mother messed it up by waking too soon. A struggle ensued and the mother screamed. Younger brother Kyle tried to hide in the kitchen, pleading for his life. Giselle hid beneath the kitchen table. However, no pleading or hiding could save them. Mother Juliana was now out the picture, and now the trigger was pulled, whilst Nicholas aimed the weapon at both of their heads. Kyle had also suffered over 100 additional sharp implement wounds. The noise of the firearm carried through the apartment block. One neighbour described hearing a strange voice, unlike anything she'd ever experienced before. She stepped outside, and then another neighbour joined her. They debated whether to call the police. They weren't quite sure what they actually had to report, but they just knew that something felt horribly wrong. Here is one of those 999 calls.
Sorry, I'm a bit rattled. Upstairs, just gone up to knock on the door, sorry. And I had a massive bang, sounded like a gunshot.
Minutes later, officers forced entry into the flat, and there they found all 3 bodies of the family. Nicholas, however, was gone, vanished into the outside world. He was now walking through Luton, carrying a shotgun and more than 30 cartridges. He was heading for his next location, as planned. For Nicholas, each and every one of those cartridges had someone's name on it. Meanwhile, 2 officers were driving back to the station from the crime scene, and it was there they saw a young man walking alone. Something about his behaviour felt off. He was jittery, but also purposeful. As they got closer, they noticed what looked like red spatter on his face. They stopped the car. He just kept saying, "It's not murder, it's not murder," one of the officers later recalled. They cuffed him on the spot, and nearby, hidden in a bush, they recovered the shotgun and 33 cartridges. The next stage of his planned massacre had been just moments away from happening. The police officer's instincts here saved a tragedy of unknown magnitude in the UK. Here is the available body cam footage of this arrest.
Okay, you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention, when questioned, some which later on in court. Anything you do say may be given as evidence. What road are we on? Birmingham Road. 426, priority. Birmingham Road, I think we've got the offender.
It's not murder.
Yes, we've got a male here, he's presented himself to us. Can we just get another unit?
In custody, Nicholas showed no signs of panic. According to officers, he was inappropriately cheerful. He even asked if, because of his actions, local schools were now in lockdown. Over the next few days, Giselle Prosper gave multiple statements, first to a prison nurse and then later in writing, a stark contrast to his initial interview where he answered only no comment.
Did you kill them?
No comments.
Police got called there to a disturbance and found your mum, brother and sister dead. Explain to me what happened.
No comments.
Did you kill your mum, brother and sister?
No comments.
Is it your shotgun?
No comments.
Is that a shotgun that was used to kill your mum and your brother and sister?
No comments.
I mean, I can confirm that this knife was taken from you by police officers, okay?
No comments.
Why did you have that knife in your pocket?
No comments.
It's obviously covered in blood. Whose blood is that?
No comments.
Have you stabbed someone with that knife?
No comments.
When police got there and found your mum, your brother and your sister, on your mum, or right next to her, is a book called How to Kill Your Family. Have you ever seen a book with a cover like that at your home address?
No comments.
Did it belong to you?
No comments.
Or did it belong to someone else living there?
No comments.
Have you ever touched that book? Because it was found right next to your mum.
No comments.
Was it just a coincidence that your mum fell where that book was?
No comments.
Have you read that book?
No comments.
Book with that title was right next to your mum. Has it got any significance?
No comments.
Have you been planning how to kill your family?
No comments.
Did you get any tips from that book?
No comments.
But now Nicholas confessed that his family's resistance had forced him to rush his carefully planned timeline. He had intended to end them all quietly, and then to head out to St. Joseph's during the morning drop-off. But his mother's scream and the struggle ruined everything. He panicked and left early. The judge would later call this a sliding doors moment, a terrible tragedy that prevented an even greater one. In the courtroom, Nicholas sat motionless. He refused to stand for the judge. He barely looked up. He pleaded guilty to all 3 murders, as well as charges related to firearms and possession of a sharp implement. The details of the case were laid out in full. Jurors saw his YouTube videos, the typed plans, the note where he wrote, "I was right in predicting no one would have called the police had I killed them in their sleep." He admitted to wanting to cannibalize my family and rape a woman at knife point before the shooting. When asked why, he simply wrote, "Because I could." His father, Ray Prosper, was present in court. As the judge described the murders, Ray sobbed audibly, and he didn't stop until his son was taken away. At an earlier hearing, he'd shouted, "I still love you, son. It's not your fault, okay?" But in a written statement, he also said, "When I heard the horrendous news that day, part of my soul died too. This is a lose-lose situation for us all." The courtroom wasn't just filled with grief though, there was anger too. And the anger wasn't just aimed at Giselle Prosper, but at the system that didn't stop him sooner. It seems there were many missed opportunities. On sentencing day, the courtroom was packed. The public, the press, grieving loved ones were all watching. Mrs. Justice Chima Grube delivered her verdict. It was to be life imprisonment, with a minimum term of 49 years. That meant Nicholas Prosper would be eligible for release when he was 68 years old.
For about a year after leaving sixth form college in Luton, where you were failing to work towards A-levels, you planned a shooting on a scale that you hoped would make you globally notorious. You aimed for 34 deaths, one more than the deadliest shooting of recent times in the United States of America.
However, notably, he did not receive a whole life order, the sentence which is reserved for only the most serious of crimes, and a sentence where release is never an option. The judge gave 3 reasons. Nicholas had pleaded guilty, he was only 18 at the time of the crime, and critically, he was interrupted before carrying out his full plan. Had you completed what you intended, she said, this case would have had a very different, and even more appalling, outcome. To some, though, that reasoning wasn't enough. Shadow Justice Minister Kieran Mullen called the sentence unduly lenient. He questioned why a man who did this, and who intended to do even worse, should ever walk free. The Attorney General is now reviewing his sentence. If a whole life order is ever imposed, Prosper will never see freedom again. If it's not, he may one day be released. But regardless of that outcome, one thing is certain in this case. The officers who stopped Nicholas Prosper, and just stopped him on a hunch, saved an untold number of lives.
These are officers who had been working a night shift, so been up all night, had been to the crime scene and had to stand guard, helping to put in place cordons. They were travelling back to the police station and spotted the offender and thought something doesn't look right here, and went and investigated, and I'm extremely grateful that they did.
Perhaps one tragedy, in one way, put an end to the next. Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.